here to stay, right? So what is blockchain? And I want to actually discuss this with regards, but when we hear blockchain, we hear of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, right? But today we want to talk about the technology that made Bitcoin famous, right? So blockchain, according to this definition, is basically a ledger of records. It could be private or public, and it's secure and transparent. But I actually find this definition better, more relatable. The guys from Blockgeeks asked us to picture a spreadsheet that's duplicated thousands of times across a network of computers. And then imagine that this network is designed to regularly update the spreadsheet. So if you were to imagine owner of a block who has a private key, he edits his block, and the rest of the network will update theirs. So if thousands of computers across the world is updating their blockchain, what does that tell us? The chain is reliable, safe, secure, but most importantly transparent, right? This is an example of how a blockchain would work. So Jim wants to send money to Mary. The transaction is represented online as a block. The block gets distributed across the network. The network verifies that the transaction is valid. The block is added to the chain, and then thereby Jim's record of the ownership of the money moves to Mary. That's a very illustrative example. So quickly, let's talk about smart contracts now. So smart contracts are effectively self-executing contracts, right? So what happens here is code is added onto the blockchain, and the terms and conditions of, for example here, a trademark license is pre-programmed onto this code. And then, for example, let's take an example of a video game manufacturer. Now, if he wants to receive a royalty payment every time his trademark is displayed on the game, that would be incredibly difficult to track, firstly. Secondly, how would we affect that? It would be a huge transaction cost. The blockchain, though, and a smart contract would do that quite easily. We would automate the execution. So there's something, when the terms and conditions are triggered, that is when the trademark is displayed on the game, that smart contract would self-execute. Are you with me? You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So when it self-executes, that royalty payment would automatically transfer to the trademark owner, right? So royalty payments here can be calculated automatically from product sales and directly transferred to the licensor. There's a white paper that on smart contract enforceability. This was in 2018 September. Very good read. They basically wanted to highlight that smart contracts are neither particularly smart nor automatically intended to be used as a contract in the legal sense of the word, but should be viewed rather as software applications that can take on a contractual nature if the engaging parties so choose. So the reason I'm running through this is because I feel like most of you already understand what blockchain and smart contracts are. What I like to do here is link it to a trademark license. Now, as we all work on licensing deals almost on a daily basis, what are the usual pain points, right? We need to do our due diligence of the licensor. So, does the licensor have the right to license the trademark? Is he the true owner of the trademark? Then we're looking at his past and current licenses. We need to do our due diligence of the licensee. Is there any conflict? Are there any third-party licenses? If they are, were they successful? We're also looking at financial stability and etc. Now, by so many parties, firstly, it's tracking all the transactions in the chain, and it's checking on post-term usage. Other uses and other benefits are also that it will eliminate costs and increase revenue, obviously. Right. So I'm going to show you a very simple illustration of how the blockchain would practically work with regards to one element of a trademark license. So say we have the trademark licensor, and he wants to enter into this agreement with the licensee. He wants to license his trademark. The licensee can verify the ownership of the licensor through the chain. The licensee then wants to sub-license his trademark to a sub-licensee, who can not only verify the ownership of the licensee or the right that the licensee has to in fact license his trademark, but he can also verify the ownership of the licensor. So say for example the licensor has assigned his rights. He does not own the right to license it in the first place. But we will not know this unless we do our due diligence, obviously. And how would we find that? If it was already part of a chain, it would be very easy to track. Now, all of these examples I should mention is if the transactions, all of these contracts were already part of a blockchain. Okay? So thereby, we have now a link of the chain of custody. Does this make sense to everybody? Yes? Okay, so this next part is just my opinion on what could be the possible hurdles. And this is where I'd actually like some of your inputs. So I think in such a scenario, we're going to have data security issues, right? Privacy concerns with GDPR now. How would governments regulate smart contracts? How would they tax them? And do we need separate e-commerce laws? The same smart pairs, the white paper that I talked about on smart contracts, they concluded that you don't need separate e-commerce laws. This will fit in perfectly with our existing laws. But I like to hear your opinions too. And I actually kept this presentation really short because I wanted to have an interactive discussion with you. Will there be time for that now? Ms. Dr. Reddy? Yeah. Okay, so if you have, with all your expertise and experience in trademark licensing, do you have any concerns and do you think that this could actually possibly work and would be the future of trademark licenses? I know that Accenture they have developed a software application based on blockchain technology and smart contract technology to manage their software licenses, not particularly their trademark licenses, but their software licenses. And it is now patent pending. So this is definitely happening. It's here to stay. And I feel as attorneys, we need to get on board because the general conception here is that if we allow these kind of smart contracts, what happens to us attorneys? Well, I can assure you we're not going to go extinct. We are going to be needed to negotiate and draft these trademark license agreements. We're going to be needed to work with blockchain specialists and experts to create these smart contracts and to ensure they're actually effective. And then, of course, we're going to be needed at the dispute level. We actually have at Kocha a couple of clients who are interested in implementing this, and so the talk is already started. So I would like to now put it out to you guys if you can also contribute your opinions and also to the panelists. If you think that this is a possibility, and if you think what could be other concerns, and if we could how we could effectuate this.
Thank you, Lynn. It is a very brief and crisp presentation. But interesting point, what as a lawyer I understand is that blockchain will create the better evidential value. Yes. There could be everything recorded in the system, and at every stage of it you can monitor what I understand. But there could be the problem areas also. But as Lynn said, that how smart and better advocate you could be in drafting and all, unless you get acquainted with the technology like blockchain technology and all, you can't be a smart lawyer. And with this, I think, now, any questions from the audience on this issue? Because it's a very burning issue now, blockchain technology.
Practically possible and feasible in present legal system.
in the present legal system. Yeah, so in the present legal system, there is no laws that cover this. Like, they don't directly refer to blockchain, which is why we need to start talking about it. I know that the US government and the EU Commission, they've set up caucuses and research bodies to talk about this, to do research into it. But I'm not sure if they are talking about licensing or trademark licensing, or they're just generally discussing how blockchain could help them and using the technology to help them in their like patent registrations and patent offices. So, but there is talk, but there's no laws. So there's a lot of unanswered questions here. And the reason I wanted to bring this up today was because nobody's talking about it.
Also, some concern about the tax implications on that.
Well, in India, of course, you know that you need to have everything on stamp paper. And the reason is that is how the government is taxing us, taxing the contracts, right? That's a part of government tax. But in a smart contract, how would the government regulate that? So there's a question there. But also you should understand that a smart contract is not a legal contract. They're two different things. But I'm sure the government will, once it gets, becomes very increasingly.
Scenario also may look at like us will just say it is not really evidential value. In case of litigation, it cannot be enforced.
Well, if it's in part of the chain, then it's definitely evidential value because it's a transparent process.
I understand, sir. I got your question.
Have the enforceable legal document in the court of law.
You're right.
Yeah.
But when there was a system of even extracting the documents from the internet and putting in the court never used to accept that. In subsequent stages, now filing a 65...
Now even Watson courses are being recognized. And
Guys, Section 65 affidavit of the Evidence Act, we file it and we got regularized as secondary evidence this being taken. Probably the system will develop now because blockchain technology is unknown earlier. Now as it is evolving now, the law also should also follow. The question is with regard to taxation, because unless the document is registered in India, that won't have a statutory value as a primary evidence. Now, exactly what the point she is trying to emphasize is that as this document is between the two parties, government is not involved in this. So where is the question of the valuation? Suppose if the license agreement you make some consideration. So what could be the value you pay into the government as a tax, right?
Right.
So that is where is the vacuum now that has to be evolved. That's what exactly she's trying to...
Yes, and this is a vacuum and we have to talk about it because it's going to happen. And the government needs to, get on board with us. And we need to have this discussion and there needs to be laws created with regards to this. I've limited this to just trademark licensing because that was the topic of discussion. But blockchain technology will be used in several other fields, not just in trademark licensing, but in the legal field.
it's in the development of implementation.
Yeah, so that's what I said. Accenture just created something like this, but because it's patent pending, we don't really know. Maybe they've been using it already. I really don't know, but they've just put out a notice that they've already developed this, and it's patent pending. So,
Any precedents of already in existence either in Europe or in
for trademark licensing, yeah, I've not.
the blockchain?
I'm sorry.
Blockchain technology or smart content what we are talking about.
Right. No, I have not. I'm not read of anybody already, doing it effectively. Everyone's talking about. Like I said, I have a couple of clients who are interested in it. But in order to actually make this work, you need to sit down with a blockchain technical expert, and that expert needs to tell you how to put the code on top of the blockchain, make the smart contract, and we need the attorneys to be on board to do it. So that's where there's this big gap of knowledge. Yeah.
I just have a technical question,
Right.
because my understanding of blockchain is not sufficient. Because in many contracts, there would be confidentiality issues.
Right.
And as far as I understand you, there would be a choice. The licensor could actually disclose the complete contract.
Yes.
Then there would be no confidentiality. Would there be a possibility of disclosing only part of the contract, including only part of the contract into the blockchain,
Yes.
and still keeping other parts confidential?
Yes. So you can keep the party's identity confidential in a public blockchain.
Even the parties, but
Yeah, you can keep the artists. So yeah, but
to know the licensing.
Yes, no, that depends on your own personal preference. So if you need to answer your question, if you want to keep the party's identity confidential, you can. But in a trademark license, of course, you can't, right? So, but you can so the smart contract will not reveal all the terms of the contract. It only reveals the conditions that need to be fulfilled or trigger for the smart contract to be enforced. So like the royalty payment, like the video game manufacturer example, he wanted his trademark on top of, he wanted royalty fee whenever his trademark was displayed on the game. Whenever the game was played and his trademark was displayed, a royalty fee payment had to be made to him. So then the smart contract was effected. But until then, it's dormant, it's waiting.
Sorry. Sir, licensing would not be interested in bypassing the contract.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
None of the parties would be interested in bypassing the confidentiality clause. Everybody is interested.
Yeah.
There is the basic element in all the trademarks.
There might be other.
Whether it is the commercial for the licensee or consultant.
Yeah, the commercials will be there.
Commercial as well as the everything you want. Both parties are more serious would be have that.
Right. And the way the blockchain works is it is secure because each owner edits his block. And so that chain is secure. Nobody can really from the outside hack into the chain. So it stays within that chain.
One question to you.
Yes.
You did mention that a smart contract may not be enforceable.
We are not sure. Yes, there's no laws on that.
Okay. All right. So therefore, you cannot go to a court of law to actually enforce a contract,
But
which
we have a legal contract. So we first draft a legal license agreement, and then that is coded onto the blockchain. The smart contract is not your contract, your license agreement. It's just effecting the payment to the
One thing you
licensor.
can't tamper with. It could
Something
be,
you cannot
yes,
tamper
security.
with. That's right. You still have your legal contract that has all the terms and conditions that you all have agreed to priorly. So you can take that to the court. Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn, because again...
I have one final
please.
thing
Yes.
just to add. See, recently would have seen whenever you opened your Twitter or because of the privacy law being updated, so they had an amendment to what you are using. The usage policies got amended. I basically feel because when there are some changes in the statutory law, you will have to make change to your blockchain contract or the smart
True.
contract that you're talking of.
True.
And that might become difficult because the whole information is still not available until you involve the legal team, because only a part, as you said, you are only giving a part of the information, not the full information.
That's up to you.
Yeah, that's
As
what.
a party,
So
yeah.
it is not at all fully transparent at all. Still, you need to do the due diligence part.
No,
If
that's
I
up to you as
understand
a
this,
party,
because
yeah.
what happens is you are giving a part of your data. You, as you said, the parties' names are being kept confidential.
If you want to, not in a license agreement.
It will happen obviously because nobody would want to disclose the identity most of the times or the terms of the contract if they're confidential. And when there are changes in it, how does the world knows that the changes have actually been happened and executed? Suppose I don't agree to the privacy laws of Twitter. It will keep on appearing until I agree it and I can't use it. But
Okay.
then how do we enforce this on a real person? Like if the contract has already done and it's already undergoing, then how do you decide which date would be applicable, whether this or this?
Okay,
There are
so-
many issues in this.
Okay, so when the owner of the blockchain makes it change to his block, it automatically gets updated in the rest of the blocks in the chain. Okay, so to answer your first question, the owner is you don't, in a license agreement, you cannot keep the party's identity confidential. Okay, nobody would want to, because you want to show that you own that trademark, you've licensed that trademark, that person is sub-licensed the trademark, you want to show that chain of ownership. So you have to keep the names, you cannot keep the names confidential. To answer Carl's question, I was talking about blockchain in general. In a public chain, you can keep parties' identity confidential. This example, you cannot. But other terms of the contract can be kept confidential if you so desire. But again, with regards to the purpose of this is to show the royalty payment, to show the chain of ownership. So we'll have to disclose those items. What was your second question?
So how do we implement the changes in the contract, if any? See,
Yeah.
Basically, I still believe it cannot be called as a contract at all.
The smart contract?
Yeah,
No, the smart contract is not a legally binding contract. There are no laws that say it is. But, and I believe it is created on the basis of a legal contract. So we have our standard licensing agreement. The smart contract just makes things more effective. And of course, due diligence is easier in a blockchain. Is that not?
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, please.
Can we say, since we are already having the formal enforceable contract in one way,
Yeah,
and it is just we are creating a supplemental system of that.
possible, yeah.
Like when we are having the borrowing in case of we are creating the showing the charge on MCA portal or we are making some SAI registrations. It is a supplementary chain is created on the some portal.
Yeah.
Which can be used for that same time, and at the same time that need not require any enforcement of documents since you are already having the principal document with you. So I think there cannot be neither any. If I take in that fashion, so since it is not a separate and independent contract at all, so it is not going to have neither any tax implication. At the same time, as far the question of enforceability is concerned, that is not relevant at all. According to me, if you are having the valid license agreement and which is enforceable, and with the certain chain we are creating, this much it is flown like that, we are creating a supplementary data on the portal chain that can be used for the purpose what is designed, but at the same time it is not going to create any problem for the person what we are talking about, either from tax or the enforceability angle also.
We can definitely argue that, but I somehow think that the governments are not going to let go of that so easily, because once it's in the chain, you could enter into several relationships based on the...
It's not separate.
Yeah.
It is just summary of the what is the you have done it. You are not bypassing anything.
Agreed. Yes. So...
It is not independent something.
Yeah.
There is one, suppose some loan and security document is created with the bank for some security creation, is properly stamped, properly executed. Then we are putting it data on the some MCA site for the charges. This particular lender has extended and this particular security is created. Like we are doing simultaneously SAI registration. It is simply for the purpose of to track कि particular property has not the twicely charged or particular securities is properly on the record. But that is not going to have any independent adverse inference. But this
Agreed.
Is my opinion.
And especially in the case of when the royalty payment will be made automatically, both parties are aware of the entire situation and the transaction. There's going to be no dispute as to whether or not it was made or not, because it's all part of the chain. You can see it whether or not it's happened.
Since details are not shared also, so then confidentiality should also not be an issue in that.
No, if both the parties, there is no dispute with regard to document, there won't be a problem. Only when the dispute arises, other side dispute the document, then the problem arises. Then technicalities have to look into. Anyhow, Lynn, thank you very much for the very brief analysis on this subject.
Thank you.
Now, for last few days, there was a serious discussion everywhere that what is this Brexit? There could be hard Brexit or a soft Brexit.